Good evening and thanks for joining us. He gambled and won, and tonight Boris Johnson is back in power in the United Kingdom after a stunning victory that will change the course of the country. He was whisked to Buckingham Palace to meet the Queen, confident he now has a strong mandate to take the UK out of Europe. Of the 650 seats up for grabs, the Tories won 365, their largest majority since Margaret Thatcher in 1987.
I urge everyone to find closure and to let the healing begin.
But not everyone is ready to move on. Shouting, "Not my Prime Minister," tonight a big crowd of protesters marched to 10 Downing Street. Just one sign of the ugly divide Boris Johnson faces. He is back in power, but the United Kingdom is further than ever from being united. We'll get to Scotland's calls for a new referendum on separation in just a moment. But we begin with how Johnson surged to power by winning seats that hadn't voted Tory in decades. Redmond Shannon has our top story.
The door opens on a new era in British politics. Boris Johnson returns with a new 80-seat cushion in Parliament.
And if you ask yourselves, what is this new government going to do? What is he going to do with his extraordinary majority? I will tell you that is what we are going to do. We are going to unite and level up. Unite and level up.
Johnson reaching out to opponents, knowing his majority of Brexit-backing MPs came from a slight minority of voters.
I want to speak directly to those who made it possible, and to all those who voted for us for the first time, and those whose pencils may have wavered over the ballot.
Particularly in seats where few can remember the last Tory MP.
I've always voted for Labour, as my mum and dad did, but this time it's Boris, because I believe he can do it, he can take us through.
Votes like hers sealing the fate of Labour's divisive leader Jeremy Corbyn, who will now step aside.
I will stay here until there has been somebody elected to succeed me, and then I will step down at that point.
This huge majority for Boris Johnson's Conservatives means that MPs here in the House of Commons might finally be able to agree a path for the UK to leave the EU.
I've heard you now. Thank you very much.
On the way. Go on the way.
The result hasn't healed any Brexit divisions, but the size of the majority may force Remainers' hands.
Does the Remain movement kind of accept that we are leaving and try to shape the outcome, or does it kind of pivot towards let's rejoin the EU?
This policy analyst says the future EU-UK relationship is still a major headache for Johnson.
There are lots of detailed and technical negotiations to come in the next phase, and there's lots of uncertainties about what exactly will happen in 2020.
You suspect this newly energised Prime Minister is relishing the challenge. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Other challenges Johnson must confront are the deep fault lines in the United Kingdom, divisions made deeper by this election. In Scotland, the Scottish National Party won the vast majority of seats. Now leader Nicola Sturgeon is demanding another independence referendum. And in Northern Ireland, there are calls for Irish reunification. Jeff Semple explains how this election could tear the UK apart.
Hereby declare that the said Boris Johnson is duly elected.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson may have won the battle for Brexit, but he now faces political war with Scotland.
It's almost inevitable at some point there will be another independence referendum. It's the only thing that could derail Boris Johnson's premiership in the next 5 years.
Besides Johnson's Conservative Party, the other big winner on election night was the Scottish National Party. Its leader, Nicola Sturgeon, campaigned on holding an independence referendum for Scotland. Just 5 years since Scots voted 55% in favour of remaining part of the UK. But that was before Brexit.
It is clear, beyond any doubt, that the kind of future desired by the majority in Scotland is very different to that chosen by much of the rest of the UK.
This election map reveals a deeply divided United Kingdom, a bloc of Conservative blue in England with SNP yellow in Scotland. A camera captured this unguarded celebration as Sturgeon watched her party win 48 of Scotland's 59 seats, even ousting the leader of the Liberal Democrats. She wasted no time demanding Scotland be given the power to decide its own destiny.
A referendum must be the responsibility of the Scottish Parliament.
And those nationalist cries are also growing louder in Northern Ireland.
This election in Belfast sends a massive clear message to the Tories that we're not going away.
For the first time in history, Northern Ireland elected more Irish nationalists than pro-British unionists, albeit with a smaller percentage of the vote.
Brexit is not going to be done. It's just the beginning of the negotiations.
This British Canadian helped to negotiate peace in Ireland during the Troubles. He's calling for a compromise, a so-called soft Brexit, to maintain ties with the EU and keep the country together.
There's plenty of people in Parliament who sort of see the writing on the wall, and they realise that there should be compromise. With the present Conservative Party, which has basically changed into a Brexit party, the possibilities of compromise are greatly diminished.
The Scottish National Party will make an official request next week for the legal power to hold an independence vote. But Prime Minister Johnson is widely expected to refuse, potentially setting this country on a constitutional collision course. Donna?
All right, Jeff Semple in London, thanks.